Welcome to CrimePod Castle. I'm thrilled to have you here for the 12th episode of our series, Ghosts of the Past. Today we're diving deep into a case that left an indelible mark on India's history, the 1978 kidnapping and murder of siblings Geeta and Sanjay Chopra in Delhi.
It's a case that's as much about the victims as it is about a nation grappling with its own anxieties about safety and justice.
Yeah, when I was researching this case, it struck me how much more there is to this story than just the crime itself. It's like peering through a window into the past, trying to understand not only what happened, but also how it affected an entire nation.
And that's precisely why this case continues to fascinate and haunt us even decades later. It forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about vulnerability and the dark side of human nature, while also reminding us of the enduring strengths of the human spirit.
Okay, so let's start by painting a picture of Geeta and Sanjay. Who were they beyond the headlines?
Well, Geeta at 17 was a bright spark. She was a talented artist known for her infectious laughter and charming personality. Many who knew her spoke of her promising future.
And Sanjay?
He was just 15, a gifted student who dreamt of following in his father's footsteps. His father, Naval Commander Madan Mohan Chopra, was a respected figure, and Sanjay seemed destined for a similar path of service and achievement.
It's heartbreaking to think about what they could have accomplished, the lives they could have lived. To have their dreams cut short so brutally is just unfathomable.
It truly is. And the circumstances surrounding their disappearance only add to the tragedy. They were on their way to a youth program rehearsal at All India Radio on August 26, 1978. Think about it. They were doing something positive, something that nurtured their talents and passions, and then, in a flash, everything changed.
That's what I find so chilling about this case. It happened in broad daylight, shattering the sense of security that so many of us take for granted.
Exactly. Geeta and Sanjay were approached by two men, Kuljit Singh, known as Ranga, and Jasbir Singh, known as Billa. They were driving a stolen Fiat and already had a history of petty crime.
It's hard to imagine what must have been going through the siblings' minds when they realized they were in danger.
What's particularly disturbing is that Ranga and Billa apparently used deception to lure the teenagers into their car. They likely pretended to be friendly, maybe even helpful, exploiting the siblings' trusting nature. Once they were in a secluded area, the true nature of their intentions became horrifyingly clear.
And this is where the story takes an even darker turn, right?
Yes, both Geeta and Sanjay fought back with remarkable courage, but they were ultimately overpowered. Sanjay, despite being younger and facing a terrifying situation, tried to protect his sister. His bravery in the face of such brutality is just heart-wrenching.
I can't even begin to imagine the terror they must have felt.
The details of what followed are difficult to discuss, but it's essential to understand the extent of their suffering. Both were subjected to horrific violence before being stabbed to death. Their bodies were discovered 2 days later, discarded in a remote area on the outskirts of Delhi.
The sheer brutality of the crime sent shockwaves through the nation. It wasn't just a family's tragedy. It became a collective wound, a symbol of a society's fears.
It really did. You know what's striking about this case is the speed with which it went from a local tragedy to a national obsession. Within days, the faces of Geeta and Sanjay were plastered across newspapers, and the details of their kidnapping and murder became a constant fixture on radio broadcasts.
It wasn't just the brutality of the crime that gripped the nation, was it? It seemed to tap into a deeper sense of unease, a growing fear that something fundamental was shifting in Indian society.
That's exactly right. You have to remember that the late 1970s in India was a period of immense change, political instability, economic uncertainty, and a sense that the old order was crumbling. This case, with its random violence and senseless cruelty, seemed to embody those anxieties.
So it became a symbol of something much larger than itself.
Precisely. It forced people to confront a new kind of fear. The fear that even in seemingly ordinary everyday activities, danger could lurk around every corner. And it wasn't just limited to Delhi. The fear resonated across the country in small towns and big cities alike.
And the police were under immense pressure to solve this case, right? I mean, with the whole nation watching, they had to find those responsible.
Absolutely. The investigation was massive, involving hundreds of officers and spanning multiple states. They followed every lead, interviewed countless witnesses, and painstakingly pieced together the events leading up to the siblings' disappearance. And it was those seemingly insignificant details that ultimately led them to Ranga and Billa.
You mean like finding Geeta's purse and Sanjay's school ID in the abandoned Fiat?
Exactly. Those items, along with bloodstains matching the victims, placed the suspects at the scene of the crime. And when they were finally apprehended weeks after the murders, the nation breathed a collective sigh of relief. It was a moment of catharsis, a sense that at least some semblance of justice was possible.
But the trial itself was far from a straightforward affair, wasn't it?
No, it was one of the most high-profile and controversial trials in India's history. The courtroom was packed every day with journalists and members of the public eager to follow every twist and turn. The prosecution presented a mountain of evidence, forensic analysis, eyewitness accounts, and even confessions from Ranga and Billa themselves.
But I read that the defense argued those confessions were coerced, and they challenged the validity of some of the forensic evidence.
Yes, and those arguments ignited a fierce debate about police tactics and the reliability of forensic science. Remember, this was a time when forensic technology was still in its infancy in India, and there were questions about its accuracy and how it was being used in criminal investigations.
It must have been incredibly difficult for the Chopra family to endure all of that,
Yeah.
to have their grief played out on such a public stage with every detail of their children's deaths scrutinized and debated.
Their resilience and determination throughout the trial was remarkable. They were not just grieving parents, they were also advocates for justice, determined to ensure that their children's killers would be held accountable.
And in 1982, after years of legal proceedings, the court delivered its verdict guilty. Both Ranga and Billa were sentenced to death.
The sentencing was met with mixed reactions. While many saw it as a just punishment for a heinous crime, others questioned the effectiveness of capital punishment and argued for a more nuanced approach to justice. But one thing was clear, the case had irrevocably changed the landscape of crime and punishment in India.
So how did this case, with all its complexities and controversies, ultimately impact Indian society? Did it lead to lasting change?
It's a complex question, and the answer is not a simple one. The case undoubtedly had a profound impact on how India viewed crime and punishment. It sparked calls for stricter laws, improved policing, and greater awareness about public safety.
And I imagine it also fueled the debate about the death penalty, which continues to be a contentious issue in India to this day.
Absolutely. But beyond legal and policy changes, the case also left a deeper mark on the national psyche. It forced people to confront uncomfortable truths about societal vulnerabilities and the limits of justice.
It also seemed to change the way people viewed childhood and innocence. Suddenly, the idea of children being targeted in such a brutal manner became a very real and terrifying possibility.
You're right. The case eroded a sense of safety, particularly for parents who began to see the world as a much more dangerous place for their children. And that fear, I think, has lingered in some ways, shaping parenting styles and influencing public discourse on crime and security.
And in the midst of all this, there was the Chopra family grappling with unimaginable loss while also fighting for justice. Their story, it seems to me, is one of extraordinary resilience and courage.
Their journey is a testament to the strength of the human spirit. Despite facing immense pain and suffering, they never gave up their pursuit of justice, becoming symbols of hope and determination for a nation grappling with its own demons.
Yeah, it really is incredible to think about all the, ripple effects that came from this case. It went from a local tragedy to a national conversation about safety, justice, and the very fabric of Indian society.
And it's fascinating that even today, decades later, the case continues to be analyzed, debated, and reinterpreted. It's become a touchstone for discussions about social change, criminal justice reform, and the role of media in shaping public perception.
Yeah, I was reading that several books and films have been inspired by the Geeta and Sanjay Chopra case, each offering a different perspective on the events and their aftermath. It's almost as if the story itself has taken on a life of its own, evolving with each retelling.
Yeah, and that speaks to the enduring power of this case. It's not just this historical event. It's a story that continues to resonate with people because it touches on these universal themes of loss, grief, and the search for meaning in the face of tragedy.
For the Chopra family, the pursuit of justice was only one part of their journey. They also had to find a way to navigate their grief and rebuild their lives after such a devastating loss.
And their story is a powerful reminder that while justice can bring a sense of closure, it can never truly erase the pain of losing a loved one. The Chopra family's strength and resilience in the face of such adversity is truly inspiring.
And their story also highlights the importance of collective action and social responsibility. The public outcry, the media attention, the demands for justice, all of these things played a role in ensuring that the perpetrators were held accountable. It shows that when people come together and demand change, they can make a difference.
Yeah, it's a testament to the power of a society that refuses to accept injustice and violence as the norm. The case forced a reckoning, a moment of self-reflection for India as it grappled with its own shortcomings and the need for a safer, more just society.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the Geeta and Sanjay Chopra case, what are some key takeaways you hope our listeners will remember?
I think the most important takeaway is that even in the darkest of times, hope and resilience can prevail. The Chopra family's unwavering pursuit of justice, Their commitment to honoring their children's memory and their advocacy for a safer society, these are all powerful reminders that even in the face of unimaginable tragedy, the human spirit can endure.
It's also a reminder that each of us has a role to play in creating a society where such tragedies are less likely to occur. Whether it's through supporting victims' rights, advocating for policy changes, or simply being more aware of our surroundings and looking out for one another, we can all contribute to building a safer and more just world.
It's a conversation that needs to continue. We need to learn from the past, acknowledge our failures, and work together to create a future where every child can grow up feeling safe and secure.
It's a heavy topic, but it's one that deserves our attention and our commitment to creating positive change. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the past. We hope it's left you with a deeper understanding of this tragic case and its enduring legacy. And if you found this deep dive insightful, be sure to follow and subscribe to CrimePod Castle for more explorations into the ghosts of the past. Until next time, stay curious and stay engaged.